everybody. Welcome to the Hollywood Dream Podcast, where we talk to the people that are making film and TV in New York City and all around the world. Today, I'm here with Krystle Henninger. Krystle is a photographer, she's a stage manager, and she's also a songwriter. And recently, she won an award for Best Score at the Art of Brooklyn Film Festival for her film Stillness, right?
hmm
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, hot. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Tell me about Stillness. I obviously watched it at the Art of Brooklyn Film Festival,
hmm
but would you mind sharing what Stillness is about and how you created the video, song, etc.?
Of course. So Stillness actually comes from a set of 4 songs
Mm-hmm.
called Gift of the Night Flurries. And that set of songs was created to encapsulate what snow sounds like. And so there's first snow, which is kind of like tinkly, just the feeling that you get. Then snow day, which is kind of more of like a playful going out and having fun type thing. And then blizzard, which is a little bit more minor and intense. And then stillness, which closes out the set. And it's kind of like the calm after the storm.
Mm-hmm.
It just has this feeling of kind of like when you go out in winter and you're just kind of by yourself and everything's coming down around you, and I don't know, at least for me, I find that like that makes me feel good, and I enjoy that time. And I actually went out and recorded some of this footage at like 3:30 in the morning in the
Oh
middle
my
of a snowstorm.
God.
But it's you do what you have to do for art.
Exactly. As long as you get the shot.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one time I did before moving to New York City. I did this short film, and we were in Rhode Island,
Mhm.
and they had me crawling through like the woods in some sort of tunnel made of trees. I don't remember, but I remember them saying like, as long as we get the shot, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, if I get bit by a snake, no, it's not.
That would not be okay.
I know. Are you from New York originally?
No, I'm actually from Virginia.
Okay.
I spent, the first part of my life there, and then I lived in Nashville for 4 years. I went to Belmont University
Mm-hmm.
for songwriting, and then I moved from there to here, got my MFA in stage management at Columbia, and I've been here ever since. So it'll be 10 years in August, actually. So,
I've been here for 14.
mm.
So that makes both of us New Yorkers. I hear that after 10, you're officially a New Yorker.
Yes, I'm excited about that.
How was your experience getting your MFA? I asked because I have an MFA, and I
Mhm.
thought that getting one, my MFA is in writing and producing for TV, and I thought by getting one that would help me,
Uh-huh.
but it didn't. It really hasn't.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a waste for me.
Mhm.
Do you feel like having an MFA in stage management and for theater that has helped your career?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, what it really did was kind of fast track a bunch of connections.
Hmm.
And like I knew that it wasn't going to be the absolute, here's your ticket to, stage manager Broadway show. I knew it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be that. But what it did get me was a lot of people that I actually do still keep in touch with, and I have worked with on multiple projects.
Mhm.
I did a lot of outside non-union theater work while I was at Columbia,
Mhm.
which also really helped me. And a couple months after I graduated was when I got my equity card. So I am a union stage manager.
Okay.
Um,
So you have to be in the union?
you don't have to be. It helps. Well, depending on what you want to do,
Yeah.
it helps. Like for me, it was the difference between doing a lot of non-union work, which, you know, some non-union projects are great, but others are like, okay, I'm doing 2 months of work for $500. That doesn't pay the rent.
Yeah.
And in order to really be able to sustain yourself, you have to do multiple projects like that. And so, I remember there was one time I was working on 4 shows at the same time, and it's exhausting. So
So were they happening at different nights? How did they all that work out?
I had different rehearsals. It was usually that I was in performances for one show,
Hmm.
so that would be at night, and then during the day, I had different rehearsals for, like, 2 shows that I kept going back and forth on, and then I was kind of in pre-production for one, and the one that was in performances ended, like, the week that the one that I was in pre-production
Mm.
for started rehearsals, so there wasn't as much overlap, but
Yeah.
it was still just, I had to keep my calendar very
Yeah.
strict. It was like, "Okay, I'm going here and here and here and here." And, even then it was a struggle to really be able to take care of everything, and I was kinda done with that, and I also kinda got to the point where all of the shows that I had done had a lot of the same elements.
Hmm.
I wasn't learning anything anymore. And I really wanted to get to the point where I was like, okay, I either want to work on a big show or I want to step away and
Yeah.
find a full-time job and not deal with freelancing anymore because it's tough and it brings up a lot of anxiety and you're wondering where your rent's coming from in 6
Oh, that's
months.
the worst.
And so it was just like, I I wanna do one of these 2 things, and I reached out to a bunch of people and sent them my resume, and I didn't really hear back from any of them. So, and I mean, I didn't wait on it. I was looking for full-time jobs as well during
Yeah.
that time, and it still took me 6 months to find one. And during that time, I was doing a lot of random freelancing. I worked at Juilliard and Carnegie as an usher and,
Really?
just doing a lot of little odd jobs and
Is it like film where it's like it's all about who you know?
pretty much,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, like, you can work your way up, but having those connections gives you more of an in
Mhm.
because when people work with people that they know and they like, they keep them in their bubble, you know?
Mhm.
And it's very much you find your group of people and you keep working with them and sometimes you add other people into it or like some people move on from that and so you have to adjust your bubble of
Yeah.
who you're working with, but it's a lot of who you know, um because it's hard to just show up and be like, I'm gonna do this one day.
Yeah, and they don't post the jobs on LinkedIn.
Of course not. And even if they're supposed to, it's like, you don't really know what shows are in development. And so keeping those contacts and being like, "Hey, if you know anybody who's looking for something,"
Mhm.
so it definitely was a good thing that I did get out of Columbia, and
Yeah.
I think it did help me kind of get my feel for New York and kind of cemented the fact that I do want to be here and that,
Yeah.
this is where I'm supposed to be. And um so it just that was a good part, there are some downsides too,
Mhm.
it is hard. It's extremely expensive.
Tell me about
um,
it.
but I work at a nonprofit, so it's
You're good.
hoping that that pans out for me. But it's just it's a balancing act. And
Mhm.
it's not something where, like, if you are on the fence about getting an MFA that you shouldn't do because you don't think it's gonna be beneficial. Um, but I think you have to really, like, weigh your options and
Yeah,
figure out, "Is this right for me?" Because it's not right for everybody.
I know.
And, I feel like it was right for me at the time because it did give me that connection and it did bring me here. Would I do it again? Probably not.
I know. Like if I could go back in time, I would not do it. But part of me is happy that, I did learn a lot about TV
Mhm.
writing. And now with the strike, there's no hope for me to get a job. But no, I did. And I met a lot of cool people
Yeah.
um, that I have as connections now. But yeah, if I could go back in time, I would not do it.
I mean, I probably would do it again in this lifetime. I wouldn't do it additionally from
Hmm.
now. Um, but I feel like I learned a lot about myself too. And just it pushed me in ways that I didn't know I could go.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't easy. But what is?
Exactly.
That's life. But yeah, it was at the time it was good for what it was.
Yeah. And you've been stage managing since high school, and you've been
Yes.
doing a lot of it. You've done a lot of shows in New
Mhm.
York City, back home.
Mhm.
Can you share for those who might not be familiar with theater, with the arts, what a stage manager is, their job, and how their job can also be creative?
Yeah. So stage managers are basically kind of um, the center of a theater production.
Mm.
Essentially, that's how one of the things I learned in Columbia. We we got kind of like a shift in thinking of how stage managers work in theater,
Mhm.
and to kind of view them as a CEO of a production.
Okay.
Like, yes, the producers are the
The
are in
boss.
charge of the money and all of that fun stuff, but really, if you think about it, the stage manager has to coordinate everything. So stage managers' jobs start well before the actual production process, the rehearsals and all that. So we usually start out, we have production meetings with the crew, so all of the designers, the director, any assistants, which there are usually plenty of.
Mm.
Um, and we figure all the things out. We have to go through the script and look for any potential problems. It's like, oh, there's a bucket of blood that's going to be poured in this scene. How are we going to do that? Are we allowed to rehearse with anything like that? Is there something that we can do? How is this going to affect costumes? How is this going to affect the set every night? Is it going to be,
Mhm.
there's just so many questions that snowball from everything. Um, and so we kind of have to be the forefront and have the foresight to ask those questions. Then once rehearsals start, we keep track of blocking, which is all the movements that the actors do. We keep track of props. Where do they come from? Where do they go? Um, Put them back on the table at the end of the night. Yell at the actors for not doing that. And figure out if we have quick changes, how long people have to change costumes and all of that. Then once we get into the more tech rehearsals, when we're bringing in the elements, we have to figure out, we get the lighting cues and the sound
Mhm.
cues. A lot more shows are using projection now. So we get all those cues from the designers, and then we actually do what we say is calling the show, which
Yeah.
is saying all of the cues. Like, nothing happens unless we say go.
Okay.
Well, it's not, they're not supposed to anyway. Some people do. Or like if you've got a really big sequence and you have an understanding and you're like, okay, you're going to go off of this, or when I say this, this is also your cue.
So
Um
you're not the person, when you go to a theater and there's
mhm,
like a guy underneath, like right in front of the stage, like
mhm.
keeping, is that you or is that the director?
No, it's actually neither.
Oh.
So well, it depends on what show you go. So because there's also the person that you probably see the most in, like, are you talking about in the pit or in the back of the stage?
No, in the pit.
In the Yeah, so in the pit, that's probably gonna be the conductor,
Okay.
for the musicians.
Mm.
And we also have to work with them to make sure that, everything is on the same page
Yeah.
between the actors and the musicians, and where we're getting our cues from. Do they have enough lights down there?
Mm.
How are they getting there? What's the path? But no, the stage managers, usually the production stage manager or the calling stage manager is going to be somewhere off in a booth,
Okay.
with video monitors, being able to look at the screen. Because I mean, especially in big Broadway theaters, there's no good place for them to sit and see the whole stage and be able to talk and call cues without being
Mm.
in the audience view and disrupting the performance, you know? So usually there's some booth that's built either somewhere way up in a wing, off to the side of the stage even. A lot of shows have calling stations off to the side,
Okay.
backstage, and it's there's usually video monitors set up and some cue lights where if we do have a lot of stuff or um, a lot of the backstage movement stuff happens by cue lights where they'll get the light to be on standby, and then when the light goes off then they are allowed to hit the button to move things, or they bring in um the set piece that's coming in from up way up in the wings.
You
In
know,
the loft.
I was a stage manager once for when I first moved here. I was really close with this guy who's a playwright.
Mhm.
So he'll put up his own shows, and he asked
Mhm.
me to be a stage manager, and I don't remember doing any of that.
Well, that like what I was describing is more like the big budget,
Yeah, yeah, this was the low
Broadway and off
budget.
Broadway shows, but like
I don't even remember what I did, to be honest. I remember being in the back on my phone.
the first couple shows that I ever did, I mean, I was in high school. I didn't really know what I was doing. And the director had talked to me and kind of gave me an outline of what I would be doing,
Hmm.
but until you really get into that rehearsal room and actually see how everything's coming together, it's hard to really completely sum up what a stage manager is and
Yeah.
does. Um, and it's constantly evolving too. Like now there are so many technical advances that can help. And for me personally, I pretty much do paperless stage
Okay.
management. I like having my computer in front of me. I like taking blocking down digitally. I like running the show that way because it to me it feels more efficient because if I'm taking line notes or whatever, and that's when an actor messes up and you uh write out what they messed up and what they need to fix and all that. I'm a much faster typer than I
Hmm.
am writing by hand,
Yeah.
so it just made sense to me to start doing it that way. And while I was at Columbia, some of my classmates were like, "Oh, I could never do that." And then when one in particular, when she was working with me, she was like, "Now I kind of want to try that." And it is something that's becoming more used just
Yeah.
because it's easier and it's faster to update things. It's faster to get more people the information. Um, and that's not to say that the old way in handwriting doesn't work. It
Yeah.
definitely does. But for me, it was I don't want to spend an additional 3 hours every night after rehearsal going home and translating this
Yeah.
to the documents. I might as well just do it on the spot.
Exactly. When I first moved here, I joined, like, when you come to New York, there's so many like theater things
Mhm.
off Broadway,
Yes.
where they put up like productions, and we pretty much have to do your actor, and you also work the shows. And I
Mhm.
remember working, I think I was the lights person,
Mhm.
and I actually enjoy that because I had to be like focused on like making sure each light went into whatever,
Yeah.
or like what light goes into which cue, and just following. So I was like completely focused on that because I was terrified that I'll mess something up and then it's my fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy the lights. What is that? The light
Light
technician?
designing.
Light design.
Well, were you actually designing or were you more just hitting the button, like the board operator?
I was the operator. I remember I had to like follow the script, and then
Mhm.
each there'll be like, in this word this light goes
Yeah.
off, and in this word this light goes off.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing.
Yeah. So more the board operator.
Yeah.
But that it is fun. It's always it's satisfying to
Yeah.
hit the button and see things happen on time.
Yeah. And I think I was just like so stressed that I'll hit the wrong button,
Mhm.
and then I'll screw the whole show up, and
Yeah.
it's my fault. So
Yeah.
So what made you go into stage managing? Is that something that you just kind of fell into, or you had a desire to work in the theater and that was a way in?
Uh, I didn't know that I wanted to stage manage until I was in high school and got the opportunity to do it.
Hmm.
And then once I did, that was kind of a no, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Which is interesting because it's not what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But it's still something that I want to do eventually. Like, one of my ultimate life goals is to stage manage on Broadway, and
Mhm.
I haven't done that yet, so not crossing it off and not ruling it out. You know, if Broadway calls, I will be there. Um
Broadway, call her.
but, you know, I like being behind the scenes. I like being kind of the puppet master, you know? I like being able to know everything and put everything together. Um, I do a lot of things creatively, as I'm sure you figured out.
Yeah.
But it's just I like knowing how to do different things and knowing how different people do their jobs. And it's not that I want to do everybody else's job because I definitely don't. You know, like
Yeah.
I will never be a costume designer.
But it's good to like understand how
Exactly.
someone does their job or
Yeah.
why that job is important.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because one of our assignments at Columbia was to make a flow chart of how everyone in the theater interacts with each other.
Mhm.
And the my program advisor, every time I see him, he's like, "I still use your chart because I love it so much." Um, but my chart basically looked like a 2-year-old got a hold of a crayon and just kind of like drew all over it. Because I had the stage manager in the middle, and I was doing it on my iPad, and I initially attempted to color coordinate the different lines of how everybody connected with each other, but then I ran out of colors because I was doing it on a note app and it was
Yeah.
limited. So then it's just this nice, pretty boxes with the typeset and everything, and then just colors everywhere. But it's the stage manager is really connected to every single person who works in the theater, whether it be, the ushers or the janitors, or the producers who aren't usually on site.
Mhm.
But you still have to deal with them in a way. You're very connected to the director and the actors and the designers, and the crew. And so it's just I like knowing a little bit of everybody's job because I feel like it makes me better at my job
Mhm.
because I know how to talk to you.
Yeah.
I know what you want to hear from me. I know what kind of questions you're going to ask me. So if I can get some of those answers for you ahead of time, why not?
Yeah.
It's like let's make personally in pretty much everything I do, I try to make everybody else's life easier. And as a stage manager and as someone who leads teams, it just if I can have those answers ahead of time instead of sitting there and being like, I don't know, it makes me feel more accomplished.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes me feel like I am on top of it and I am doing a good job. So I attempt to do that. I don't always succeed, but
But it's the intention.
yeah.
What you've done a lot of theater, like you have of all the shows that you've worked on,
Mhm.
what has been some of the most challenging or the most memorable, either positive or negative,
Mm.
and why were they challenging?
Oh boy. Um, there I have done a lot of off Broadway shows.
Those
And
are always memorable.
uh,
Not in a good
yes,
way.
they're definitely memorable. A lot of challenges always come with them because sometimes, not always, but sometimes the directors have big visions and don't know how to execute. And they give a lot of things off to you as a stage manager. And they're just like, I don't know, just figure it out. And it's like, cool, but that's not actually my job. Or they ask impossible things that they're like, oh yeah, just can we just change this lighting cue? And it's like, no, I'm not actually the lighting designer. Like there was one show that I did that we weren't gonna have an intermission.
Hmm.
It was a like 2.5 hour show. It was
Oh my
like we
god.
were all mad about that. We were like, no, let's put in an intermission. And the director did not want to. He did not want to budge. And then after like the second or third night, after everybody was complaining
Yeah.
about not having a bathroom break, audience wise,
Yeah.
he was like, okay, let's put in an intermission. And I was like, you do realize that affects lighting cues, right? And he was like, oh, we'll just fix it. And I'm like,
No.
thankfully, I had actually done some lighting design before, and I had worked with the board that we had at the theater, but I was still like, I'm not supposed to just walk in and do that because that's taking over someone else's design. I can copy cues and everything, but I don't want to step on people's toes and
Yeah.
do their job for them. That's not okay. Plus, I'm not being paid to do that. Because that was
They
one of those.
always ask the most when
I
you're
know.
working for free.
Yeah, well, and that was definitely one of those non-union being very underpaid jobs. And so like and the lighting designer actually wasn't in town. Like
Yeah.
they didn't live here.
Oh my god.
So I did call her up and we did talk and we figured it out, and she told me what to do and how to fix things. But it was still just like no.
Is there a particular show that you would love to work on?
Oh, there are many.
Like, what is your dream? Like, if Broadway could call you right now.
Bring back American Idiot. Green Day is one of my favorite bands, and
Okay.
I saw that show on Broadway twice and then on tour. On tour twice as well, I think. And it's one of my all-time favorites, so definitely want to do that. I would love to do Spring Awakening.
Mhm.
I actually did do at LSU, I worked with Swine Palace and did Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And that was on my bucket list of shows
Okay.
that I wanted to do, but I definitely wouldn't mind doing that one again.
Okay. And you're also a songwriter.
Mhm.
You went to school for songwriting.
Yes, I did.
Excuse my ignorance.
No,
I didn't know that you could get a degree in songwriting.
a lot of people don't. So it's totally fine. Every time I say that was my major, everybody's just like, "What?"
So how is that? Is that a 4-year program?
Yeah. So when I was looking at schools, I was ultimate, and this kind of goes back to the whole how I got into stage management thing. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go to school for theater or for music,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty much like a coin toss decision. Like I could have done either one, but ultimately I decided, I can walk into a theater without a theater degree and have the experience to back me and be perfectly fine. But something that I've always wanted to, and I currently am kind of pursuing, is music producing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just walk into a studio and I don't have that kind of knowledge and I haven't really been working with it, they're not going to let me touch anything.
Yeah.
So, I went to Belmont for songwriting, and songwriting and composition are two different things
Mhm.
technically. So songwriting is more of like the stuff you hear on the radio. So with the lyrics, and composing is more just the instrumental type
Okay.
stuff. And I had also tried to decide whether I was going to go for more composing or the songwriting thing. But when I saw that there was a songwriting major, I was like, yes, that is actually what I want to do. And I was trying to decide between Belmont or Berklee College of Music up in Boston,
Okay.
and got into both, which didn't make the decision any easier. And I almost went to Berklee because they have a film scoring class, and that's something that I was, well, obviously now
Yeah.
interested in. But they don't have a theater department.
Ah.
So I went to Belmont because I was able to have a theater minor as well.
Okay.
But I got to work with Grammy Award winning songwriters, and had a lot of different assignments where it was like write different genres, write outside the box, do some co-writing. I had a lyric only class, which was really cool.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to I feel like it's interesting to have any kind of major where a lot of the stuff you're doing is creative,
Yeah.
because it's just like sometimes, as I'm sure you know, the inspiration doesn't always strike.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
So it's kinda like, okay, but I don't wanna force anything that's not gonna work, but sometimes you just have to put yourself in the situation where you're like, "Okay, well, I gotta come up with something because it's due
Yeah.
tomorrow." Um, but I feel like having that really pushed me to be a better writer, to understand the basic elements of what goes into making a good song, and, it was interesting because I was looking back at some of my songs the other day, and I was like, I thought these were really good at the time when I wrote them, but they could use a little tweaking, and it's just I guess that's the editor part of my brain where it's
Yeah.
just like that never shuts up."
What is your songwriting process like?
It depends on what I'm writing, and I feel like it changes every single time. Um, so a lot of times I'll get an idea,
Mhm.
and usually the best ideas that I get are ones that I can't actually actively work on at the moment. Like
Okay.
I'll get them when I'm in the shower or driving or it's like I can't put pen to paper right now. But usually when I get those kind of ideas, I just continually, if it's a melody or if it's lyrics, I continually just go over them and over them and over them
Mhm.
until I can get to paper or my computer or whatever and get them down. I record voice memos a lot.
Uh-huh.
Just, because I have noticed that as I get older, my my ability to retain those kind of things dwindles.
Yeah.
So it's just better to have a version of it somewhere. Um, and sometimes it starts with the music first, sometimes it starts with the lyrics first. Lately, one thing I have been noticing is that I've been writing the chorus.
Mhm.
I've been starting off with the chorus more than anything. Um, and I don't know if that's like that wasn't always the case. Sometimes and it still isn't always the case. Sometimes it changes up. But I just kind of go with the flow and whatever happens happens
Yeah.
and I let it.
For stillness, what was it? You started with a song or with a video first?
uh
How did that work?
so there was there was a video that inspired the song.
Okay.
So my creative partner and best friend, Jake King, he had a short little video clip that he had recorded. And it was him standing in front of his window. And you could see the snow falling through the window, and it was like really big, thick, heavy flakes. It
Mhm.
was just really pretty and cool. And when I saw that, I immediately heard the first two chords of Stillness in my head. Like I just knew what it sounded
Mhm.
like. And I wasn't intending on doing anything.
Yeah.
That was just one of those it happened moments. And thankfully I was at work where I work at a nonprofit music school, so there were a lot of pianos around. So
Okay. Well,
so I ran into a room with a piano and started playing and figuring it out. And I was getting ready to leave for the day too, but I was like, I can't go on the bus until I have this figured out. So I stayed a little bit later and worked on that. And then once I voice memoed it and I took some notes down. Then I went home and set up Pro Tools because that's what I
mhm.
record with. And literally recorded like for 25 minutes and just sat at my piano and played, and just kind of got all the ideas out of my head. And then I went back later on and actually like cut and pieced it together.
Mhm.
Was like, okay, this flows. um, and then with working through that, I knew that I wanted to do something with video
Yeah.
for it because it just felt very cinematic. It just had that feeling of big emotions and something is happening in this and I feel like it's greater than just it existing as a piece of music.
Yeah.
Um and like I mentioned, I've always been extremely interested in film scoring. So it's just it was something that I was like, gonna marry the two. It's gonna be fine. Um,
I'm working on a documentary, so I will definitely call you so you can score in my documentary.
yes, please. Would love to.
Aside from working on a Broadway show, like, do you have aspirations to do other things? So, like, what is your main goal in life
oh,
as far as a creative, being creative?
yeah. Um, I have a couple different aspirations. One of the things that I really love doing is I'm a photographer and I love doing concert photography.
Oh,
And I've been shooting mostly for Frank Turner, who is one of my absolute favorite artists. Um, but to be able to shoot all of my favorite artists at some point in
mhm.
life would be amazing, and to actually like be on a tour as a photographer is kind of like a big dream. um I also love music producing and would love to get more into that.
Okay.
I'm current well in the works. I have a very big multidiscipline project. I've got a whole bunch of artists on board. It's going to be music, dance, and film somehow. But I'll be producing that as well. So just kind of
So more in like the music side, you would say?
mostly. But I also want to do the Broadway thing. I also write novels, and I have four that I'm trying to
To
get out in the world
Okay.
somehow.
They're done
Um,
already?
uh, yes, I keep going back to them and editing them.
Mhm.
But I think they're ready for an agent or for a publisher to look
To
at,
find
and
them.
so
Okay. Well, good luck with the novels.
thank you.
I have a segment called Fast and Curious
Oh boy,
where I'll ask you a bunch of
great.
questions and you have 2 minutes to answer as many as you can.
All right.
The number to beat is 20.
Oh boy.
It's actually 19. When I was editing this one episode, I told him 20, but it was 19. I just miscounted. But since it's out in the world that is 20, it's 20.
All right.
All right, I'm going to start the clock. Who is your current celebrity crush?
Oh god. Uh, I actually don't know that I have one. Mm.
You can say pass.
Fine, pass.
What is your favorite emoji?
The smiling face with smiling eyes. I use that one a lot.
Favorite TV show?
Uh, um, absolute. Well, one of my favorites is Mash.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Godfather.
The longest flight you've ever taken?
6 hours.
Favorite family tradition, past or present?
Christmas time.
Longest distance you've ever walked or ran?
Ooh, I think like 6 or 7 miles.
Best trip you've ever taken?
Definitely a music cruise last year.
Best place you've ever lived in?
New York.
Scariest movie you've ever seen?
um, what's coming to mind is The Shining.
Favorite actor or actress?
Mm, um, Al Pacino.
Hardest class you've ever taken?
Mm, Pre-calculus, and I dropped it.
Calculus is hard. First concert you went to?
Bob Seger.
What was your first car?
A Nissan Maxima.
What fashion trend do you wish would come back?
Uh, mm, Pass.
Last show you binge?
Currently watching Say Yes to the Dress.
Okay. What's something people love? It's done. I'll give you this. What's something people love that you just don't understand why?
uh, um, Rap.
Okay. 15. It's not
Not
20.
bad.
You didn't win.
That's okay. I didn't think I was going to. I took too much time on the first one.
I know you did. All right. And final question: if there any advice you could give anyone who has aspirations to pursue a career in theater, whether it be stage managing, acting, lights, whatever.
Just do as much as you possibly can. You know, I feel like we're in a world where the more you do and the more knowledge that you have, the better equipped you are to do anything. So, as much as you can say yes, take those opportunities if they're presented to you. You know, you never know where it's going to lead or who you might meet, or you might end up falling in love with what you do.
Yeah.
And so it's just say yes as often as you can. Unless it's gonna absolutely make you
Miserable.
Yeah.
I agree. I wish I would have said yes to more things when I first started.
Mhm.
So I agree. Well, thank you so much, Krystle.
Thank you for having
Glad
me.
you came
Yes,
and didn't
this is awesome.
cancel.
Of course not.
And where can people find you?
So I have a website, KrystleHenninger.com. I have a photography website, KrystleHenningerPhotography.com. Instagram, KN Henninger, and Twitter, although I don't really tweet anymore, and Facebook, K Henninger 13.
No threats.
No. I just saw that that's a thing the other day and was like, nah.
I can't keep up with social media, so. But thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.